Welcome to Famish for More. I am your host, Misha, and I am a stroke survivor, and that is what birthed this podcast. I birthed it out of wanting to reach back by speaking on topics that I feel like get swept under the rug when it comes to stroke survivors and when you're in recovery. Um, a lot of people, who haven't been affected by it, they go back to life. But it's not that simple for us, especially at the beginning. Depending on how big of a stroke impacted your brain, you have to recover. And your body is weird. Well, no, I'm going to take that back. Your body is amazing because it has its own way of healing us and assisting us through this recovery in many ways beyond just the physical healing that we have to go through. So in my recovery, I would say that I focused more on the physical, and it was kind of like I compartmentalized my healing unbeknownst. But when I look back on it, that's exactly what I was doing. I was focusing on getting my physical ability back, that I wasn't really tapped in yet to how it was emotionally and mentally affecting me. Overnight, we wake up and our life is completely changed forever. In my case, I woke up and no longer, like, my life literally changed. I could not work. I couldn't even take care of myself. I couldn't even stand or write. My mind was shot. Like I had to build my memory back up. I can recall when I first got to the rehab, was that rehab? No, that was actually the hospital. No, it was rehab. Sorry. So when I got to rehab, they ask you a series of questions. So you go through an assessment and they ask you simple questions like, do you know what today is? Do you know who the president is? And that's when it hit me that, wow, this really happened to me. That was the beginning, but it was like I still didn't process it because, again, my focus was on, I gotta walk again. I need to write again. I couldn't fathom giving up. And so I didn't process what was mentally and emotionally happening to me at the time. And when I'm asked, how did I get through it? How did it feel? Like when I recall, I feel like I was floating through that. It doesn't still seems real. It's like I was watching it through third party, if that makes sense. Most stroke survivors, you probably understand exactly what I mean by it. Like, to the outside world, they're looking at me as wounded and weak, right? And me, myself as well. But I didn't feel that way. Because I was so driven, I didn't allow all of that to affect me at that moment. When I recall, I was so busy trying to push my arms and push my leg to do stuff and forcing myself to tie my shoe or hold a pen or hold a fork. Like I was just so mentally driven on that. And after having your stroke, you don't have much mental energy. Like you get exhausted quick. So I was forcing myself to focus on the physical aspects, and then I would be exhausted and I had really no time to process what I was going through. Even when I was journaling, it was more focused on my ability to write. Is my handwriting getting better? More focused on that than actually the emotions that I need to be writing onto the journal. And so what makes me talk about this today is that I was sitting here thinking about Jamie Foxx, and I seen that someone said he was speaking about grief, stroke grief. Like, you have to grieve the person you were before the stroke. And it takes a while. Like, it's not a overnight thing, because you're grieving a person you were with your whole life, and you had dreams for that person. You had goals. You had things set up, planned for that person to do. And that person dies the moment you have that stroke. It doesn't matter if you had TIA, or you had a massive stroke from, or like from me on worse, or anything in between. Your life is over the moment that happens, that life. And then you step into a new life. And it can be hard to swallow that pill. You want to constantly reach back and grasp the old person until you can get through the process of mourning that person. And when you look back on it, if you've lost somebody close to you, it's kind of the same process, because you go through all the stages of grief, because you're grieving who you used to be and the dreams and things and the plans you had for that person. And so it took me a while. It was a back and forth, a pull and push, back and forth type of thing. It still is, but it was bad. I fast forward now, in April, I'll be 4 year post stroke. And so I've come a long way, but I've had a lot of back and forth moments, and a lot of inner work and shadow work and inner healing and mourning that I had to do. My advice, if you're in your stages of recovery, take it one day at a time and do what feels good for you in the moment. Don't put too much on your brain. Don't put too much on your plate for the future. And don't waste a lot of time soaking about the past. But take the time to heal and mourn the past. Because if you don't, and you do like I did, try to move forward as if you can mix the two, you'll only revert back and have to go do more inner work. I had to revert back several times when I thought I was ready to come out. Even with this podcast. I came out, I was full of fire, this and that, but once I got out, I had all these feelings and things just start popping up that I didn't know existed, that I had to go back into hibernation and do some healing and some work and some, dismantling old limiting beliefs that were attached to the old Misha, and start accepting the new reality that I get to create. And that takes a lot, because the limiting beliefs, you have to deliberately, daily, all day, redirect and make sure that it does not affect you and your subconscious moving forward. Because it's just so much trauma that if you don't deal with it, it kind of leaves you in this loop that's mixed with the old energy, the old feelings, the old things that probably brought on the stroke to begin with. So you have to break free, but you have to take it in your time. And one thing that I want to talk about is, because being in stroke groups on Facebook when I first came home, that helped me, because I literally, when I was in the hospital, I vowed that, God, you get me through this. I will not be focused on the shallow things that I was so focused on before, because I love beauty. And I still do, but I had to do some healing and some inner work to understand it's deeper than that. What I went through, I can still do the things. I can add everything that is a desire for me, but I have to come from a different place when desiring these things and going after these things. And I would have not have known these lessons had I not had the stroke and had that time out away from society, because again, I was in the hospital. I made that vow to God. And in that moment while I was in my hospital bed, I was deleting and archiving makeup, all my makeup stuff, because I was starting to build. I was a small little content creator. And at the time of the stroke, I had just started getting on a routine of my lives and starting to build, and I also was working a full-time job and a part-time job. I was doing a lot of things, but it was not in a direction that was in my and divine, in aligned with my purpose. Now that I know better. And sometimes we be running a hamster wheel in the wrong direction. Like, you on the hamster wheel, that's strike number 1, but then it's facing the wrong direction, strike number 2. So you're wearing yourself out. And it's like, I look at the stroke as a owner reaching their hand in the hamster cage and taking the hamster off the wheel and taking the wheel out of the cage. So God took me, he came in, reached in to my busy life, took me off of that wheel, snatched that life out of the cage. My wheel, he snatched it and left me in there to sit and heal mentally, physically, and emotionally. So I can actually stand into that promise that I made when I was in the hospital. And that is to help others, because I know I have it in me. I love to research. I love to love. I love to give back. I love to uplift people that seems like they don't have that optimistic energy in them. I live that way. I'm a Leo 2 times, sun and rising. So in the hardest of times, I'll find a joke. In the hardest of times, I'll find a way to uplift. I'll find a motivational something to say to keep whoever around me up in spirits to not give up. And that's something I do effortlessly. And so being able to sit down in the hardest time of my life, it seems like, I was abandoned by friends because I didn't have the energy. I was no longer that exuberant, motivating Leo. I had to take all that energy and put it into myself. And that showed me that the people that were around benefiting from my energy, they left because that energy no longer was available. I had to use all that for myself. And I had to mourn that as well. So it's a lot of different things that we go through that makes us stronger, so we can be a beacon of hope for other people. Because I look back at the people that showed up and did what I'm doing now, and listening to them is what got me through. And I vowed to do the same. So I had to get through my insecurities, my procrastination, my imposter syndrome. I had to mourn who I was. There were a lot of things that I had attempted because I'm a creative. I can't be still. I'm always thinking of another way to create something. But now that I know, I was going at it from the wrong place, right? Now I can still have all of those talents, gifts and talents that I learned from trying this and trying that. Now I get to use them with my purpose to help. And then if you've listened to my past podcasts, you know that I've been discovering my natal chart. And that is what has helped me get on this path of self-discovery and self-love. Because once you realize there's nothing wrong with you, you literally are planned by God. It was written in the stars and the planets for you. how you should, what you would come up against and what it would do. The blessings, the lessons, the people, the losses, the gains, all of that is in your birth chart. And the more I learn, the more I get more confident in who I am and able to step forward and in alignment. And so where I'm at now is not where I want to be overall, right? But I know that it starts with now. Everything you want starts with now. So if you are currently recovering and you find yourself alone, because again, people around you, being in the stroke groups has shown me that people are insensitive, whether they know they are, or maybe they're doing it on purpose to people that are already going through hell. But I want you to start learning the art of detachment. That way you can sit in a room with people and still be in tune with yourself, pull out your journal and start writing or get your music on and detach from the negative. Because, a lot of people can't remove themselves from negative environments. And so when you only have your mind because your body is weak, you have to train your mind to detach from the negative energies or things around you, so it doesn't penetrate you. And I need you to fill it with nothing but positive things. One thing for sure, negative and positive cannot cohabitate together. One has to leave. And guess who overrules? The positive. The negative is going to flee. And if you can get outside into nature, but if you can't, try to get you something with some headphones or, your device that you're listening to me on. And I'll try to be more consistent where I can come with these type of chats and motivate you guys and also give updates on where I am. The healing doesn't stop. With a brain injury, you realize your shortcomings where other people, they don't notice it, right? But you notice it. I notice my aphasia. Still, it flares up when I get super excited and my words won't even come out. It's like crazy. It's funny to me now because it's a part of my new me. And so I'm accepting and loving that. And then with my physical, people see that I can walk again. I can talk again. Well, talk good. And I can, use my hands and do a lot of things that shocks people. But I've learned how to kind of, substitute, because I have a balance issue, but you wouldn't know because I know how to substitute it now. But I've taken the initiative to start using my physical equipment and getting back into recovery. Like I guess not recovery, but rebuilding. And I know that the balance will get better as the muscles get stronger. And that helps me too with my mental clarity and my mental health. It gives me structure and a routine, something that I had when I was in the rehab. And that was very successful for me. But when I came home, I fell off and a lot of depression hit. And so I'm just getting back on track. And that's allowing me to show up. I'm showing up for myself, so it's allowing me to show up for those that may listen to this, may come across this, and may need to hear this. I pray that all that need to hear this is guided to this and is giving you what you need. I hope that this is value to you. My testimony. It's not over. It's not over until you give up. And you just keep taking it one day at a time, one step at a time. And take nothing personal, because with the stroke, your emotions are different. Your nerves are different, and so you have to learn how to adjust to this new you and regulate your emotions and things like that and your anxiousness. What helped me is I'm such a creative person. I just start finding things to do to take my mind off of it and listening to other people podcasts and YouTube videos. So you can get through it. I'm testimony of it. I've listened to other testimonies of people who've had it worse than I that have made it through. It's about that will, that inner strength, that inner resilience, that inner knowing and belief in yourself, belief in the higher power that's in charge of it all. And just taking it one day at a time and not letting outside circumstances affect your recovery. Because that's a hard one, but that's the one you have to work on the most because it will affect your recovery. Your love life will affect your recovery. Your family acting shitty with you will affect your recovery. Not having any money will affect your recovery. Not having transportation will affect your recovery. You know why? Because it'll be in your brain and it'll stress you out and it'll keep you in a low vibration. I've been there. You have to learn how to detach from all that shit. You have to know that long as I'm living and I'm good today, that's all I'm gonna worry about. You have to learn to train yourself that way so you don't spike up your blood pressure. You don't backslide back into the hospital or you're in where you have to start recovery all over again. Or you don't have to get heavily on antidepressants. It can happen and you can get stuck there and be stuck in a loop. So I commend you if you're listening to this because that is a step. Join stroke recovery groups. It helps you. Not only does it help you, just being around people that are going through what you're going through, you get to see that there are people that have had the stroke and are going through worse things than you. And there are people that had their stroke and bounce right back quicker than you. Like there is no race and everybody in those groups are supportive because they understand the shitty things we go through and the good things that we go through. And that's where we can go and congratulate each other where your family doesn't necessarily clap for the little things because they don't understand how important they are. But another stroke survivor is going to give you your claps because they understand that's a big deal to take a shower. It's a big deal not to need the shower chair. I know I've been there. And so I'm going to wrap this up with saying I'm proud of you and continue to do what you're doing. And don't harp on the vision you had, but focus on the new vision of who you're creating. And I'll see you in my next episode. Until then, peace, love, and happiness. Bye.